Today I have a little story time for you. It was a time back in my old school. As a person with Asperger's syndrome, I struggled with social interaction, making friends and getting along with people sometimes because I just had something within me, like a trigger that released all these emotions that got in the way and were sometimes destructive. As a child, before I hit puberty, I had violent tendencies and lashed out or cried when things went wrong. I would not take betrayals or if people did me wrong, or even if people just made innocent mistakes which harmed me in some way, because I did not believe I was deserving of that. You know, as a child with Asperger's syndrome, it was really difficult. Definitely the most difficult time of my life because I wasn't in control of my emotions. So this led to a lot of confrontations, let's say, in the playground. Oh, this was good fun, you know. I would usually pick fights with other kids who just annoyed me and who tried to annoy me back. It was like back and forth guerrilla tactics in the playground. So once I had a problem with this kid called Archie, and we had times of jubilation and celebration when we were playing football with each other, but there were also times where he would get in my way and he would annoy me. The guerrilla warfare started and him and I got fighting. So one time, I did a hit and run on him. I felt so good for this. I just literally, I don't know why I did this, but I had Asperger's syndrome, right? And I wasn't really in control of my mind. I used to sometimes go around and just destroy things. Like, I used to take the kids 3 years older than me. I used to take their little toys called hex bugs and just throw them at the wall. I just wanted to do that. I don't know why. Maybe it was because of my lack of understanding of myself. Maybe I didn't like them having fun without me. And that's a huge thing because having Asperger's syndrome and autism, you may be rejected from the group and you just want to get revenge on them somehow. Now these guys, these year 6s, I was in year 3, they were playing with their hex bugs, they were doing nothing wrong, but I would still go up, pick up the hex bugs and throw them at the wall. And then they would tell their parents and then I would get parents' complaints. And then my parents would have to deal with me and I would make life difficult for them. Yeah, it was just crazy. Anyway, I did this with Archie. He didn't have hex bugs or anything, but I used to just run up to him. I saw him and I gave him a big kick in the windpipe. And he went, "Oh!" And then he ran straight back after me, but I ran away before he could do anything. Or at least until I backed into a corner and had to defend myself. And I used to do this with other kids in the playground, like, oh yeah, I knew what I used to do. There were these 2 other guys, and these 2 guys I used to run up to, taunt them in a way that would anger them. And they had such short tempers just like me. And they would do the same back, so it was all an even playing field here. So these 2 kids, I used to go up to them. I used to just taunt them or whatever, and then run away when they reacted. I did this with a few other kids, but for the purposes of this video, I'll stick to these 2. And they would all start acting energized, and then I would taunt them again. I'd just throw insults. And they would get so pissed off, they would march towards me like, and it was just these back and forth interactions. And I remember these instances fondly, not just because they were kind of negative experiences, maybe they were somewhat related to trauma, but also, most importantly, because they were quite exciting times. You know, I used to have this friend whose house I used to go to, and we used to grab his mum's deodorants and just spray them and set fire to things. We were such naughty kids, and we would watch 18+ content on YouTube when I was just an 8-year-old, 7-year-old in fact, and I felt like such a boss. But anyway, I just had this innate curiosity within me to just go and do bad things. I was really inspired by Horrid Henry, and that's why I started my own Purple Hand Gang back when I was 9 years old, which I discussed in a previous story time. Oh man, it's so great to fondly look back on these memories because importantly, they taught me something. They taught me the ways in which you should interact with people and the ways you shouldn't interact with people. Back then, I just viewed myself as this normal kid, but I did have different behavioral tendencies which made me make enemies. But that was so important for me because I learned that lesson early on in life before I became a teenager and we all became young adults, so that I would not make the same mistakes again. And I think that was so crucial to my childhood development. So I look fondly back on these story times where I got into fights because unlike a lot of kids nowadays who just have their devices and iPads as their friends, I was actually out here in the real world. I didn't have my first phone until age 11 or my first iPad. And I was out here getting social interactions, and I believe those social interactions, both the positive and negative ones like the fights, resulted in me building up as a man and having a blast while I was at it. And now I'm as mature as ever and I'm ready to tackle the world as I see fit. So I believe these fights or negative experiences or whatever you want to call them were so crucial to my development because I learned so much about social interactions. And maybe if you have Asperger's syndrome too and had similar instances to me, then maybe you will relate too. I hope you enjoyed listening to my story today. Take care and see you in the next video.